Hello, happy gardeners. Welcome back to Southwest Victory Gardens, your resource for organic gardening here in the desert Southwest. My name is Brandon Merchant, and on this channel you're going to learn all about backyard gardening in desert climates using fewer inputs and fewer resources, using less water, and all while gardening in harmony with our Sonora desert ecosystem. If you like what you see today, please like the video and go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you like. I also invite you to check out our website, southwestvictorygardens.com. On our website, we have just a ton of resources there for backyard gardeners, all on desert gardening. We have information on pollinator gardens, native plants, rainwater harvesting, you name it. If it's for backyard gardening in desert climates, you'll probably find it there. And it's all free. It's free for you to download, so please check that out on our website. So welcome back. This is the third video in our series on potting soil or potting mixes. In the first video, we talked about, why you should be making your own potting mixes from scratch, and we also recommended some resources for you guys on where you can access the ingredients needed to make potting mix. All of those ingredients can be sourced here locally in Tucson, wholesale or in bulk, so you can buy them in large quantities to save yourself some money. And they make a really great potting mix. So check out that first video if you want some more information on that. Second video, we actually went ahead and mixed those ingredients to make a potting mix, and the first mix that we made was the greenhouse potting mix. The greenhouse potting mix is a specialized mix that works primarily in the greenhouse, right? You're going to use it to raise young seedlings, from seed in very small pots. It's got a lot of fertilizer in it, so it's really nutrient dense, but it's also really light because it uses mostly coconut. And so it works really great for that application, but it's a little more pricey. So if you want to fill, say a raised bed or a larger container, I probably am going to recommend the mix that we're going to talk about today, and that is just what I call the potting soil or potting mix, regular potting mix. So there's a lot of reasons we want to make our own potting mixes. Primarily is going to be cost. If you purchase your ingredients wholesale, you purchase them from local distributors, which we give you that information in the resource guide down below, you're going to be saving yourself just a ton of money. And if you're filling a lot of raised beds or big containers, you're going to really want to think about making your own potting mix for sure. Number two, the ingredients that we use in our homemade potting mix are a lot better than what we get in bagged potting mixes. Bagged potting mixes typically contain a lot of undesirable ingredients. Chiefly among them is peat moss. We really want to avoid peat moss in any of our mixes. We don't want to use it in desert climates really because it has a tendency to really dry out and it does not work well in our soils. So avoid peat if you can. A lot of those mixes also contain like filler material, things like wood chips and stuff like that. And those can be usable in some instances, but I try to stay away from those if possible. And third, the main thing is the quality of the ingredients. You're going to be able to make a mix that's super nutrient dense, but also does not cost very much money. And so that's really the important thing, is that you're not just using cheap ingredients. You're actually going to get a good result from this mix. So you can see behind me, my raised beds are all using this mix. Every one of my clients who I've installed hundreds of gardens over the last 7 years have all used this mix. So it's very versatile. It's all purpose. You can use it in raised beds, large containers. You can use it for house plants. You can use it for native plants. You name it. You can use this as sort of a base starter mix and then go from there. You can add this or that to it, or a little more of whatever you have, and it's just a great place to start, and it would be the main mix that I'd recommend for most folks. So what we're going to do is head over to the Nuestra Tierra garden, where we have all of the materials already pre-staged and ready to go, and we will show you how to make the mix, what ratio we're going to mix those ingredients, and talk a little bit how it's different than the greenhouse mix which we made in the last video. So we'll head over there to actually go ahead and make the mix. But what I just kind of wanted to show you this mix in action. Like I said, I've used this mix in many applications over many years, over a really long time, and I've had really great results with it. Not just me, but my clients as well. So I strongly recommend this mix if you're going to be thinking about filling a raised bed here in Tucson. So, all right, let's head on over to the garden, and I'll show you how we make this mix up. So I'll see you there. Thanks. All right, so the potting mix recipe that we're making today, which we just call potting mix or regular potting mix, is very similar to the greenhouse mix, which was the greenhouse mix was 2 parts coconut, 1 part compost, and then a half part each of our vermiculite and perlite here. The potting mix, on the other hand, is actually just going to be flip that. We're going to have 2 parts of compost, 1 part coconut, and again, half part each of vermiculite and perlite. Now, in addition to having 2 parts compost instead of 2 parts coconut, the main difference also in this mix is that we are switching to what is known as chips and fiber. So chips and fiber is the medium grade of coconut husk, coco coir, and it works really, really great in large containers. So basically you want to think of it like this. The larger your container is, the more coarse you want your coconut fiber to be, right? And so chips and fiber, being the medium texture, medium grade coconut, works really, really great for large containers, and it even works really good in raised beds. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this chips and fiber block, and we're going to mix that with our compost instead of the coco peat, which we used in the greenhouse mix, right? And again, we're still using the same amount, vermiculite and perlite, both 1/2 part each. And so this mix is really similar to the greenhouse mix, except we're having more compost. Now, because we're using more compost in this mix instead of coconut husk, and compost is more nutrient dense, our mix is going to be a lot heavier, it's going to be a lot more dense, but it's also going to have a lot more nutrients in it, so we don't have to add nearly as much fertilizer as we did in our last batch of greenhouse mix. So we're going to add less fertilizer, so we may only add, say, maybe 1/4 to 1/2 pound per 5-gallon bucket, which is a lot less than we were using in the greenhouse mix. And we're also going to be using a much, much, much cheaper fertilizer. We're actually going to be using a fertilizer that we make from scratch here at the food bank. And so you can see that here. This is all plant-based material. All of it's locally sourced from local companies, and it's a really, really excellent fertilizer that we make here at the food bank. So you can actually come and buy this fertilizer. We sell a 30-pound 5-gallon bucket for $25. So that's a really, really great price for organic fertilizer. You can also just make that fertilizer yourself. We actually have a blog post on that on our website. If you go to our blog post that we did on fertilizing your citrus trees, you can learn all about how to make that fertilizer. But we'll probably make a video on that in the near future as well. All right, one other thing I wanted to show you. So in the last video, we showed you how we soak coco peat block. So you can see just how fine of a texture this coco peat is. And what we're doing is actually soaking these in water. Now it takes a little while to actually soak these coco peat bricks. I like to just let them soak overnight if I got time, because then I can go in and add water as I need. If you're in a rush, you can try to do it in a few hours, by constantly turning and agitating and adding more water. But I don't really like to sit there and wait, so I like to just let these sit overnight or for a few hours in water, just like you see here, and just add water as they start to soak it up. And then you want to be careful you don't put too many bricks in one little container, because they can actually expand so much that they break the container. Now, chips and fiber, which is what we're using today, pardon my mess, is a lot easier to use. Now, what I recommend you do is get 2 large buckets, both of the same size, just like you see these 2 green buckets here. And what you're going to do is one of these buckets you're going to drill holes in, and we've done that here. I've had these buckets for about 7 years now, and I'm still using them, so they work good. And then this bucket we're not going to drill any holes in at all. This is going to be our water bucket. And what we're going to do is we're going to place our whole bucket in there. We're going to put our coconut brick in here, and then we're going to just soak that in water. Now, if you just get a jet nozzle on your hose and you squirt it directly point blank at the brick as you're filling it, that brick will expand in just a matter of minutes. So I'm going to show you how we can do that really quick and how you can expand that coconut brick. So let's take a look how we do that. All right, welcome back. So, just took a few minutes, and now directly spraying a jet nozzle spray, right, point blank on that brick. It's going to splash back for a second, but pretty soon that jet will go into the brick and it'll expand really, really big, and just takes a few minutes. And then you sort of do like a deadlift type thing, and it's just like draining pasta or whatever else, So now you can see it's all completely broken up and it's ready to use, and it's really nice because it's moist. It's got a great smell to it. So I really, really, really love chips and fiber. Use it more than any other type of coconut. So if you look here, this is the Coco Peat that's broken up, and you can see it's just a really fine texture, just looks just like peat moss. And so you could substitute this for peat moss, and that's exactly what we use it for. But if you look at here, it's a lot more coarse textured. It's got those chunky chips in there, and it's got all that like nice fiber material in there as well. And so all of that coarseness really opens up the mix, and it allows you to be able to use that really dense compost in a higher ratio. So 50–60% of your mix can be compost if you go ahead and break it up with a lot of this chunky material. So again, chips and fiber is the medium texture of coconut. You can actually get something called cocoa chips, which are a little bit larger, chunkier chips, and I really like that for things like cactus and succulent mix, and anything where you need a lot of aeration. It works really good for like house plants and even desert native plants as well. So let's go ahead and mix this up. I'm just going to do it right here on the tarp. I'm not going to use the cement mixer because we're only going to make a small batch, and I'm kind of going to just do it by eye because it's just like cooking, You can add a little bit of this, a little bit more of that, and every batch is going to be just a little bit different. But if you follow the ratios, for the most part, it's going to turn out pretty good. So I'm just going to mix this here, add a little bit of compost, a little vermiculite and perlite, and just until I like the way that it looks, and then I'm going to go ahead and call it on that. So we'll keep filming while we do that real quick, and we'll show you what it looks like at the end. Thanks. All right, so there it is. This is the potting soil, the all-purpose potting mix. You can use this for large containers, small containers, raised beds, house plants, vegetables, cactus and succulents. I mean, you can really just use it for just any number of applications. But like I said, I mostly grow vegetables in it. And this is definitely the mix that I'm gonna recommend you use for if you're gonna be filling a raised bed. So you can even up the compost to maybe 6 parts to 6, 3.5, half, so let's say 6 parts compost, 3.5 parts coconut, and then 1/2 part of the vermiculite perlite mixture. So that would be a 1/4 part each of vermiculite and perlite if you're doing the math. But you know, if you're going to do 5 parts, like in this mix, which is the 2 parts compost, 1 part coconut husk, and 1/2 part each of vermiculite and perlite, that works too. You can just see here this mix, you know, it's nice and it's got some chunks in it. You can see those fibers in it. Whereas if you just look at our potting soil mix, I mean, they look very similar. You probably can't tell the difference on the camera, but if you feel them, you can just tell the greenhouse mix is just lighter. It's just more air, you know, it's more fluffy. And the potting mix that we used for raised beds and large containers, it's heavier, it's a little more dense because it's got more compost in it, but it's definitely got more of a coarse texture to it because of all of that, you know, chips and fiber coconut husk. Although it's heavier by weight, it still feels pretty airy and works really, really well in large containers. So that's the basic potting mix. Again, 2 parts compost, 1 part chips and fiber, and then 1/2 part each vermiculite and perlite. Whatever your parts are, as long as you keep that ratio. You can use 5-gallon buckets, you can use wheelbarrows, you can use, you know, pickup truck beds if you want, if you're making a whole bunch of it. But as long as you keep that ratio about the same, it's going to be okay. So I got all of the resource material for you guys. Pardon me, I'm sweating. It's still hot, it's December here. I got all of the resource material for you guys down below, so you can check those links out. You can visit our website where we have all sorts of information there as well. And of course, if you have any questions at all on how to use these products, where to get these products, you know, anything at all, please leave questions down below. Leave some comments, you know, let us know like what you like to use in your potting mixes. Is there any other ingredients that you prefer? You know, we love to hear all of that as well. I think we'll do one more video on just a unique mix that is going to be for a very, very specific application, but it's going to be really helpful, especially for production gardeners, and that is the rooting cuttings mix. So the rootings and cuttings mix is really cool because it doesn't use any compost at all, so it's an interesting mix, and so we'll talk about that one in the next video. So appreciate you checking this out and sticking around and watching us make this big mess here. I'm gonna have to put all this away and get it all cleaned up now, so we'll see you in the next video. So take care, everyone. Bye.